Hello, friends. We are here to review the latest episode of The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. At this moment, I cannot remember the season or the episode, but you know where we are because you're here. I have to be honest. I don't really understand the story that they were trying to tell us this episode, right? Like every episode, as produced and edited, is like they're putting a story together for us to watch, but I don't know necessarily what it was this episode, but that doesn't mean it was a bad episode. We'll get into it. We start off the episode with Meredith denying any involvement with the whole Angie and rumors thing. I listen to words when I'm listening to these interactions, and what she says is, I did not. Now I don't remember verbatim what she said, but she was basically saying, I never talked about your husband, or I never spread rumors about your husband. So I don't know if this was like a semantics tricky thing for Meredith, or if she really just felt like, well, it felt like a semantics thing, because then when she got into it, she was just like, well, yeah, I definitely have heard rumors about your husband, but I wasn't spreading any rumors about your husband. And then I think that is technically true, I guess. That's what I was thinking about, because at the end of the day, I guess you can look at spreading rumors as being that person going out telling people, like, hey, Angie's husband is doing X, Y, and Z. But I think you can also look at spreading rumors as repeating the rumors, right? But if you're not repeating the specific rumor, then I guess you're not spreading the rumor specifically. That's where the semantics comes in, right? Like, because she didn't specifically tell the ladies, this is the rumor. She just said there are rumors. So I don't know. Both are bad. I'm not here to justify it, but I'm just trying to figure out where Meredith was going with this. Obviously, this doesn't last long because Angie, we know Angie, like when she responds and she's getting fired up, she's got the attacks for us. So it was kind of exciting for me. I know you guys don't love Angie, but I get kind of excited. I'm not going to lie. And, she obviously tells Meredith, like, it's weird that you're having these talks about my marriage because you're the only one that's, having relationships outside of your marriage. So I'm wondering if this is something that Angie actually knows, or if this is just piggybacking off of what Lisa said in her hot mic moment, which is also pretty iconic. Sorry. So, I mean, I don't know. So Meredith disengages. I'm surprised she didn't say that. But she's just like, I'm not going to have this conversation for a weird reason. She's like, because you're not speaking to me with respect. That's the weird assertion to make. Like, I get it, it's valid, it just feels misplaced. Like, I don't necessarily think that that's the reason that Meredith left, but I understand it. I think it's impressive that she was able to pull that one out, though. I think I might use it. So she runs off. She sits with the group, and Lisa's like, I'm glad you guys are coming. And Angie comes over. She's being super confrontational. She's like, don't turn your back from me, pay attention to me, which I would have to agree. Like, you are not spreading these rumors, since I guess I don't know what spreading rumors is. You're discussing these rumors, or you're discussing me at the end of the day, and you're discussing my marriage. So, have a conversation with me. Like, what's the tea, girl? And, Meredith's not trying to have the conversation. She keeps repeating, you're speaking with disrespect. They have a little bit of a back and forth, but Meredith is like ducking and dodging. Like, she's not trying to have it. So, like I said, I never peeped that tea about Meredith until Whitney says it. Like, Meredith definitely tries to, like, get up out the jam, like, whenever there's a jam. But I think what I'm realizing now is that, I'm not faulting, again, we're not going to go back down semantics road, it's driving me crazy. But I do feel like, at the end of the day, Meredith is the initiator of this weirdness between her and Angie. At the end of the day, all semantics aside, all details aside, she is the initiator of this energy that she and Angie have. So it's weird to cause that energy and then run away from it every time Angie is trying to address it. You don't have to like Angie, and you don't have to like the way that Angie is going about it, and you don't have to like what Angie is saying, but at the end of the day, it's my opinion that Meredith started with her. That's just how I feel. So that's why I also think it's weird that when, Meredith's leaving, or whatever she is at the end of the party, she's telling Lisa, I don't know, like, Angie has this weird thing with me. And I'm like, that's just a very weird characterization. It almost kind of feels like a gaslight. Like, again, you don't have to agree with the way that Angie is responding, but I would have to acknowledge that Angie is responding. It's also interesting, I don't know necessarily if this rumor, whoever has spread Meredith and started it, if it has any merit, and I'm interested to see how much more we really get into it. I'm hoping that it's dead and done. But it's interesting because Heather is speaking to Whitney, and Whitney's like, had you heard of the rumor? And Heather's like, yeah, like it's all over. So I immediately start thinking, like, okay, so it must have merit, it must be all over town. But Heather basically says, well, I've heard it because he's a hairdresser. Like, so, as soon as people found out he was a hairdresser, and, she makes her kiki and her confessional about him, the way he dresses and his appearance and whatever. So she's like, all those things considered, people take that and they assume that he may be gay. That's totally different from the actual rumor that he is having relations with other people outside of his marriage that happen to be gay relations. So, it's related, but those are two different things. So I'm saying then I just don't feel like the rumor has merit. What I feel like Heather is most really saying is just like there's an assumption there because of, there's a preconceived notion because of the where he works and how he dresses, but not necessarily any credence to the rumor. So I don't know. I'm hoping that this is such a messy situation that I'm hoping it just added to the dynamic, but it doesn't really become a storyline that we continue to talk about because it's very ill for a lot of reasons. And we end this off with Lisa kind of repeating what she said before when they were on the trip, that basically she feels like Meredith's in the wrong and she feels like Meredith is playing the victim. I thought about this a lot and I sat with it a lot. And I'm just going to refer back to what I said maybe like 2 minutes ago. I do, at the end of the day, semantics aside, I feel like this is just so messy and we don't have enough information to really talk about the specifics of who did what and who did this. At the end of the day, I feel like the energy between Meredith and Angie is weird because of something that Meredith started. I think that it was inflamed by Angie coming on the trip uninvited, and then obviously they had their back and forth on the trip. But I also feel like, as I said previously, when they were having the conversation, I feel like Angie came in hot at one point when they were at the pool, but I feel like when they were sitting down having the conversation at dinner, Meredith was being very like jerkish and very dismissive. So I just feel like both parties are at fault. That's kind of why it's difficult to talk about. But for the sake of analyzing, like, do I agree that Meredith is playing the victim? I would have to say yes, because I think that Meredith invited this energy. And by going around, whether you spread the specific rumor or not, you were going around saying that you knew things about her. So at the end of the day, you've welcomed this. Like, it's kind of useless. We get to Angie's house and they're playing like kind of somber music, and I don't know why. I guess I was really over the storyline, so I didn't know what was going to happen next. But this is a scene where she is talking to her husband and telling him what happened, which is pretty endearing to watch. At the end of the day, again, no matter how you guys feel about Angie, this is a personal story, and I feel like it's a good one to watch because we at least get to see their dynamic. And obviously she tells him, and he said this on Watch What Happens Live last week, but it's interesting to see that he also said it like in the moment while they're filming, because on Watch What Happens Live it almost felt kind of like political, but knowing that he said it in the moment, it could have also been political because he's on camera, but it kind of felt more so like, okay, this is how he feels. And basically that's that. He says, the gay straight question of it all isn't really the thing, it's the infidelity thing. And they kind of repeat what Heather said, like, obviously he's a hairdresser, so he's been dealing with it for like 30 years, like it's always been around, fine, whatever. But he says the real issue is the infidelity thing. And I was like, okay, so like I said, it sounded political. But then obviously when we get more context, which I guess I should have assumed, but it's nice to be reminded. But the context that Angie was giving when she's like, well, we're Orthodox Mormons and, infidelity is a big thing in a Mormon church, and they bring in their daughter with it. And we know how close they are with their daughter. She's an only child. So, okay, like that made sense to me. So I understood, him getting emotional, and it made sense. And we end this with her husband saying, she's not welcome in our home anymore. Like, I don't want to be around her. I don't want to see her. I would like to see how that plays out. Like, maybe if they have an event and Meredith isn't invited, like that would be something interesting to see. Obviously, I'm producing right now, but I would like for that to be something that happened naturally. Like, that would be fun to see. We move on with the like personal story, and we get to Monica. There was some confusing discussion. Like, she was obviously discussing some like differences in the relationship with her mom, which I mean, I wasn't necessarily following that well, but she was talking about it, so I knew that it was important and it probably will come up later. I didn't know that it was going to come up in this episode, which I'm glad it did because it gave me some color to what I wasn't following. So the mom thing aside, because we'll talk about that later, she's, talking about being a single mother and those struggles. And I I've said this, like, I just find I just need more color. Like, I'm open and I believe that Monica, and I know, like, from what she said, she did experience being a single mother and she had challenges prior to being married. But then she talked about being married and her husband handling everything financially, and then she cheated on him, so now she's back single. So that's why there's a disconnect there from me. Like, I don't know if I can really dive into the single mother story as it pertains to her situation now, because for me it feels like it's as a result of her cheating on her husband. So I just feel like I need more color to that. Like, that doesn't mean she never struggled because she was a single mother, because that was just her circumstance. But in terms of today, it feels like she's a single mother and she's telling us this is her struggle as a result of her cheating on her husband. I don't know, I need more information. We get, Lisa with Jack and they go get their nails done. And it feels like, at the end of the day, they're talking about the mission, and she briefly brings up Heather, and we get to see a scene that we didn't see at the party, which I wish would have seen, but, whatever. And basically, Heather was asking Lisa about the mission, and she was just trying to get information. I guess Lisa kind of felt pressed by it, like Heather was pressing her for info, and she's like, I don't know why she really cares. Didn't really seem to move Jack too much. And then we move over into this thing of like, I feel like Lisa almost maybe felt judged by Heather, and so she was kind of, which she probably already felt some type of way about, but Heather kind of shed light on it. And I think Lisa maybe feels like people are going to judge her because she's an unorthodox Mormon. Her son has, made this big decision, and she didn't know anything about it. So I think she may have some insecurity around that. So in this conversation, it feels like she's trying to articulate that in the best way that she can to her son, who seemingly, I mean, he's kind of shut her out of that process. Like, that's something he did by himself. So she's kind of coming in on the back end. So without feeling like she's pressing him, this is what it feels like to me. Without feeling like she's pressing him, it seems like she's trying to figure out, like, well, how do you feel about me? Like, do you think I was a good mom? Like, I think she wants to know, like, did this contribute to his choice? You know what I'm saying? And it felt like to me, because at the end she says, like, well, you chose to go, so obviously I was a good mom. So it feels like to me she's questioning whether she's a good mom. And I think she may think, like, when other people find out, are they questioning if I'm a good mom? Like, do people think that I'm a bad mom because I allowed my child to go do this? But then she's, she's looking at it on a different perspective. And she's like, well, I could be a good mom because he chose to do that. So I think that she's trying to reason with it, which is good. The only thing is she's trying to get it out with Jack, and she's not necessarily getting anything from him because he's like, well, I made the decision on my own. So I don't think that it's a reflection of their relationship or anything. I think Jack is just thinking like, he's a teenager, he's doing his thing, but his mom is trying to work some things out for herself. So that's interesting to see. That's just me reading between the lines. I could be completely wrong, but that's what I was feeling. Next, we get Lisa and Whitney going to see Angie, which I thought was nice, but I thought it was interesting that Whitney was going to be there because I just feel like the whole thing of the rumor coming out was messed on the part of Whitney and Monica. Like, I didn't buy the whole, like, being there for my friend thing. So that's why I don't really, like, it was hard for me to see, because basically, like, Lisa's like, well, how did Monica get into it? Because I think she's looking at it as mess as well. But if she's going to put it on Monica, I think she should put it on Whitney as well. But I don't think she has all the information that Whitney brought it out of Monica, and that's why Monica brought it up at the party. But whatever. I think that's why it's hard for me to agree with Whitney, because Whitney feels like, Lisa's on Monica's neck, but Monica didn't actually spread the rumor. She's just saying what Meredith was doing. But that's just not true. And Whitney said it with such conviction that I think she thinks it's true, which is unfortunate because that's such a mischaracterization of what was happening. Like, Whitney, the only reason it started with you, and it started VMS. And I don't think that Monica is naive enough to think like, oh, we are being good friends to Angie. Like, I think that Monica knew that you were trying to start mess. And I think that Monica was feeding into the mess for TV's sake. Like, you guys were at work. So neither one of you were doing it with good intentions. So it's weird. It's first of all weird to even try to make that the argument for yourself, but that's expected because you have to cover yourself. But then you're trying to cover somebody else with the same BS. And they're not even involved in the cover. So I don't know. Like I said, I would just find it hard to believe that she really believes that they were working to be good friends, both individually and as a group, she and Monica. But if she does believe that, then that's very interesting to me. Like, it should be studied. And, report back to me. Like, let me know, because I am thoroughly invested. But they kind of end off, they're comforting her, and they're like, nobody believes the rumors. And they kind of end off with Whitney telling her, don't feed into Meredith. Like, she feels like last year she fed into Meredith too much, and she kind of learned that was just not her tea, and that was the best thing that she could have done. So she's like, don't feed into it, like, move on, like, whatever. And Lisa's advice is more so like, don't feed into Monica. Like, she makes things up, don't be around her. But obviously we heard Whitney's defense to that. So, even back to that a little bit, like, it's too told a little bit, right? Like, I do think Lisa is on Monica's neck because she doesn't care for Monica, which I can agree with. I understand that. But I also think that Whitney's defense is a little far-fetched as well. And we obviously get these very, like, cringy moments of Lisa kind of making it about herself. And I know that she was feeling it because she did also say, like, it's not about me. But I wish that she, like Whitney said, would have read the room. Like, this isn't about you. Like, y'all are here to check on Angie. But I guess even just in listening to what Lisa was saying, just to at least pull something out of it to hear what she was saying, obviously, I didn't think it was real. Like, I thought it was kind of a key because also similar to Whitney, like, I just didn't know that Lisa really felt any type of way about it, specifically as it pertained to Heather. But I can understand because, obviously Heather, I feel like, was at the forefront of piling on Lisa for the last 3 years. So Lisa said, like, especially in that first reunion when it came out of nowhere, because Heather, I don't know if you guys remember, but Heather barely had any, fever or any heat towards Lisa during the season. But at that reunion, she was really on one kind of out of nowhere, and it just didn't stop, right? And so, and even in the instances where she wasn't at the forefront of, like, beating up Lisa, like last season when she let Meredith do it, she still was kind of sitting by while it was happening. I can understand what Lisa is saying. Again, bad place to say it and bad time to say it, but I understand where she's coming from when she's like, so Heather has all this grace for you, but she never had that for me. Like, I've been doing this for this for a long time. So that's me giving Lisa her oats, because that's a point there. But also, this just didn't have anything to do with her, and I wish that she wouldn't have inserted herself so much into it. She also inserted herself when she was talking about, this puts me in a weird spot because I'm trying to be better with Meredith. Like, it's just not about you, sis. And so, that part I was just like, eh. But I do think it was interesting, again, in a scene that we didn't see that we should have seen, because that would have been great, that Heather and Angie had this, sit down, and basically that Heather's just so unpredictable. And Heather was basically like, the way that she were treated on the trip, I didn't agree with it, and I apologize. I should have, been there for you more. So, even as I was just saying it, I kind of feel the outrage of Lisa. So, misplaced, but that's weird. Like, where is that even coming from, Heather? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just like, it almost kind of feels like, okay, well, you let it happen in the moment for TV's sake, for work's sake, for mess sake. And then now, after all the dust has settled, it's like, oh, girl, I wish you hadn't gone through that. So that's just kind of weird to me. We then get this really weird scene leading up to, like, Meredith's personal story with Brooks, and she's talking about this accident. But if you pay attention to the music that they play in specific instances on the shows, the music that they were playing felt almost kind of like whimsical, like something they would play for something that's gonna turn out to be an ironic situation, right? Like, sometimes things happen on the shows and then something in the future happens to kind of contradict that situation or shed light on that situation, or just to show, like, that situation wasn't that serious. So it kind of had me listening to this story of Meredith potentially going off a cliff as if it was being fabricated, or if she was over dramatizing it, or or if we're gonna learn something later that takes away from that story, right? And something I didn't notice, but I saw on Twitter, if I'm not mistaken, because they are like, I didn't look too closely into it because I was trying to get ready to record, but I believe that it was Meredith's page, and I think that she tweeted something to the effect of like, why did they put accident in quotation marks, right? Like when they said what happened for the scene, I guess allegedly they put accident in quotation marks. So she's like, are you trying to imply that somebody did something to make this? It was very confusing. Okay, so I don't know. But I made a note about it. Meredith made a note about it, I believe, from what I saw on Twitter. So, we're going to have to look into that. We're on to Monica's personal story, and I was really wondering where we were going with it. Only because, like, it was fun watching them, like, be in the drive-thru for McDonald's, but I just wanted to know, like, what was going to happen. Like, what's Nana going to give us? Like, how's Nana going to tie into the story? But obviously, Nana and her venue or where she was going, her little activity and stuff, was just a setting for our scene. So I'm fine with that, whatever. Basically, Monica and her mom get into a very fast-paced conflict or dispute or disagreement about how Monica's children are being raised, but it went back to how Monica was raised. Monica's mom is talking about, it started because Monica's mom talking about a date, and she was going on the date. And Monica's asking like, what's the next steps? And her mom basically was saying like, well, it didn't work out because I told him that, I don't believe in sex before marriage. For some reason that really rubbed Monica the wrong way. And she, was expressing that she felt some type of way that her mother had left the Mormon church, but was essentially still following the doctrine in the sense of not having sex before marriage. This felt, obviously I don't know her mom, and there has to be so much more there, so I would need some more color to this picture. But in what I saw, it felt judgmental for no reason. Almost, it felt almost like some type of resentment there. Like I feel like Monica has some type of resentment towards her mother. So like when you have those type of feelings towards people, certain things that they do, whether they be big, small, or in between, will just rub you a little bit more wrong than what they typically would, right? Like those things just kind of trigger you. So I felt like that maybe was something that just trigger her because of a deeper issue that she has with her mom. Because she also made like a side comment where she's like, I don't know why my mom's doing that. I guess maybe it makes her feel like she's a better person. So maybe she feels judged by her mom or something. Like, I don't know where that resentment's coming from. You know what I'm saying? I hope that makes sense. So Monica, she continues to even kind of push back. I just don't even know. So with the stances on the Mormon stuff, like there's always so much pushback between these conversations. And I just don't know if I will be that involved. But I've never been Mormon, right? So, whatever. But Monica's giving her some pushback, and she's like, it's just weird because you even, like, apologized to me for raising me in the Mormon church. And awkwardly enough, her mom's like, I don't remember doing that. Like, I didn't do that. And Monica's like, you definitely did. Her mom's like, I don't remember that. So that's weird. Like, I would love to dive into that a little bit more. Like that dynamic is a little bit weird. That's an interesting detail to differ on, right? But ultimately, Monica's mother's feelings are just that she feels like Monica's kids should go to church every Sunday. I don't know anything about Mormonism, but in listening to the other ladies in previous seasons, it seems like, there's Orthodox and unorthodox, right? So Orthodox is you do all of the things, whereas unorthodox is however you want to apply it. And if you want to apply it in a certain way as like, maybe I still go to church. Like Lisa even said this episode, she's like, I still go to church, but like I don't go to temple. I don't feel worthy to go to temple. So I was looking at it as, why would it be an issue if your daughters went to church? Because her mom was just saying go to church. She doesn't necessarily say be Orthodox Mormon. She's just like go to church every Sunday. That's what I was hearing. But Monica, she wasn't taking it that way, right? And it may have been that she felt like her mom was judging her parenting because she did say something about that. But again, I think that it's probably something a little bit deeper in the resentment with her mom. It is a weird disconnect there that we're not necessarily getting all of the puzzle pieces to as of right now. And even in that, like, I guess because Monica's like, well, what difference? It just felt like she was almost kind of being against the church. Again, I need more information, but it almost felt like she was just being overly against the church every week. If it was just a church every week thing, it felt like she was being overly against it, and I didn't know why. Because then she starts to like compare it, and she's like, well, I went to church every week, and I was Mormon, but I still got pregnant at 19. So it just didn't seem like she was open to the idea at all, right? And she starts doing this comparison thing, which kind of triggered me because it felt like the comparison thing she was doing with Lisa. And I felt like I said, I felt like she was doing that stuff with Lisa because she had an underlying negative perception about Lisa. And so things that Lisa was doing, while they may be annoying, I think that they were triggering Monica more than they would trigger the average girl. You know what I'm saying? So I'm seeing a little bit of that with her mom. Doesn't mean her mom has never done anything wrong. That's just what I'm seeing. And so I'm just like, in that, I say all that to say, it just feels like that felt like to me a second instance where Monica was like comparing struggles, or like, comparing struggles, like, well, you went through this, but look at what I went through. That's just what it felt like to me. And, her mom is highlighted because her mom's like, you always want to have a pissing contest. Like, it's not a pissing contest, and we need to have boundaries. That is what it is. And, they kind of segue into talking about how, they had some type of argument, and her mom thought she hung up the phone, and, she was kind of going off about Monica, and she said that she hated Monica's effing guts. So, that's interesting. I don't necessarily, to Monica's credit, she's like, I can't imagine saying that about my kids, and I don't know that I can imagine somebody saying that about their kids. Well, but I'm sure it happens, because it seems, it seems like they have an interesting relationship. It's obviously not that great if her mom's going to say that, and it doesn't seem like Monica's surprised by it. You know what I'm saying? I think she's very much so in tune with what the heck is going on. She wasn't even necessarily like emotional or caught off guard about it. Like, it just seems like, and I think she said that's not the first time it happened. So it seems like that's a normal thing. It's not okay, but I'm saying there has to have been tea there that Monica's fully developed in, and I would like to know. I would like to see it. Finally, we get a link up between Whitney and Heather, which is fun to see from like a producer standpoint, because I guess they're working on their relationship or whatever. But, in whatever level they're in, it's nice to see them together. And Heather starts talking about how, she asked Lisa at the party about Jack going to the mission, and Lisa had let her know, that she was the last person that she told. And Heather's wondering, like, why would I be the last person that Lisa told? And I'm wondering, like, why would you be anybody that Lisa told? Because you guys are not friends. Whitney says what I think all viewers are wondering, and Whitney's just like, it seems like this is a sore spot for you. And like, Heather's like, well, it's not for you. So it's like, okay. Because typically they are. Well, we noticed last season that they're not on the same page about this attack against Lisa anymore. But I guess, I don't know, Heather forgot. So Heather's like, yeah, this isn't a sore spot for you. This isn't weird for you. And to Heather's credit, I think that she was making valid points. However, I don't think that they should be applied to Jack and Lisa. I think they should be applied to Heather. It seemed like she was very turned off by Whitney saying, good for him. But I think that that's a valid statement, right? Because at the end of the day, and Heather was very clear, she's like, these are my feelings about the church. Correct. So those are your convictions. You make valid points that obviously by going on a mission, from what she says, I don't know, I've never been on one, but you're basically recruiting people to become a part of the Mormon church. And she says with very little information, you're kind of ruining these people's lives and getting them to sign up for something that they don't really need to do. And she's like, I feel bad about doing that. She specifically says she feels shame. So I get her then looking at other young people signing up to do it and feeling like, oh, they shouldn't do that. But that's not it's not really your perspective to put on that child or their parent for that decision being made, right? So it is kind of good for him. If that's what he believes in and if that's what he wants to do, even though it's not great, that's his religion. You know what I'm saying? So if that's his religion, if that's what he believes in, then good for him for choosing to do that. I mean, I don't, it's not like he's doing anything terrible. Lisa said that a little bit earlier. She's like, it's not like he's doing other stuff she did say teenage pregnancy, but she's like, he's doing a mission. It's related to his religion. So I mean, yeah, good for him. That's up to him. It is what it is. Finally, she says kind of like what I said earlier. She feels like Lisa didn't want to tell her because Lisa probably thought that she was going to judge her. And Whitney's like, well, that is interesting because she did basically say that she felt hurt by you. And she feels like you haven't really given her an opportunity to kind of be a friend, essentially. And Heather's confused by that for some reason, because she feels like, well, if Lisa wants to be my friend, then why wouldn't she have told me about Jack? And I'm just like, because of the moment that we're having here, you know what I'm saying? You're being judgmental, and you're always kind of judgmental as it pertains to Lisa. You're always kind of adversarial as it has to do with things with Lisa. Like, and so, and then even in having this opinion, like if you hadn't had the history that you have with Lisa, maybe if you had this opinion about Jack going to the mission, it would go over a little bit better. But you guys don't have a good history, and you definitely don't have a good history of being like receptive to her and liking her even. So I don't know why she would have shared any information with you, wanted to be friends with you, trusted to give you information that you wouldn't judge her with. Like, that wouldn't make any sense, Heather. And you have to know that. So that, I mean, even after doing this review, I kind of feel like my head is all over the place because that's why I was saying, like, I don't really know what story we were telling with this episode. A lot of things occurred, but I feel like a lot of things are kind of in the middle, which is fine, right? Like, you know, give us something to look forward to. But I'm just a little confused. You know, I just like closure. It's an insecurity of mine. It is what it is. I just don't know. Like, I like resolve, and I don't really know what occurred this episode. So I hope that we get, for every single little thing that happened on this episode, I hope that we get some type of something of closure because I'm confused. But it was a good episode, and we will see what happens in the next one.